Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine.
Chancellor Scholz of Germany has refused to send Ukraine rocket launchers. These are long-range missiles. Scholz won't send them because he says he's afraid that Ukrainians might use them, to hit Moscow.
Joe. Little fucking Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting.
Welcome to Ukraine Bank.
Before we go to Ukraine, let me read this text from a listener. Hey, Bob, can you please tell Joseph that I look forward to his updates every day? I'm really sad to hear him not as cheerful and exhausted. Sorry for what he's going through. Please let him know I think about him every day, and I appreciate the danger he puts himself in to keep Americans posted about the truth in Ukraine. Thank you. Let's talk to Joseph Lindsley right now, and it's understandable that you've been a little rattled in our conversations this week. Joe, hi.
Yeah, Bob, good afternoon from Kharkiv. I had some sleep because it was a calm night, but indeed, like many people in this city, I've been sleeping on the floor of a bathroom because the attacks have been so intense and unpredictable. And, when you hear the air raid alarm sound, usually it means you're going to be all right for a little while, because almost every single time the Russian attack begins before the alarm can even sound. And that's one reason why I came here in this time to Kharkiv, just 30 miles from Russia. I felt that the story was being missed. I know a lot of people here, and the one reality, while we can debate about all these spending packages and even talk about offensive weapons for Ukraine, the West is not even providing defensive means for a place like this city of Kharkiv, Ukraine's second biggest city, and a city that refuses to quit. And meanwhile, as I was running this morning around the city and training with some Ukrainians, we're planning a 100-kilometer relay over the course of a day and a half. And just as a you got to find ways to keep your spirits strong. But I see so many ruins around the city, and the Russians are trying to, it's going to take a lot longer, but they're trying to make this into some kind of Bakhmut and just to erase it from the map. And if the West would just send Patriot missile batteries, of which the U.S. has plenty, and even I hear that there's plenty of those waiting across the border in Poland. They could be here. They could be saving lives, and they're not. They're not here. And this is the question that has to be asked of Washington and others. And the United Kingdom, which has been one of the keenest supporters of Ukraine, since the early days when Boris Johnson came to Kyiv, but under subsequent prime ministers, the UK still supports Ukraine, and they're pushing to make an interesting deal. So Germany, Chancellor Scholz of Germany has refused to send Ukraine German's Taurus missiles, rocket launchers. These are long-range missiles that could make a difference. They can make a difference to the front line. And Scholz won't send them because he says he's afraid that Ukrainians might use them, to hit Moscow. How dare they? After all this. And so he's refused to send it. And so the British government said, well, how about if we give our Storm Shadow missiles to Germany and you send the Taurus to us, and we'll give the Taurus missiles to Ukraine. And there's some hope that this could sit well with Germany. They could pretend that they're not part of the messy efforts to stop Russia. And so we see that sort of maneuvering happening. And it does seem, among the countries of the world, the UK does seem no matter what party, people seem to understand the situation here. A former Labour politician, he was Lord Robertson. He's now a Labour peer, and he was also the Secretary General of NATO about 20 years ago. And he said the other day, if Putin gets away with this, where will he stop? And he emphasized that Ukrainians are fighting for us and that we need to do more. And meanwhile, as this is happening, Putin unapologetically is pushing forward. And even today, he entered Europe. We mentioned before, Russia has this exclave going back to the end of World War II called Kaliningrad. It was formerly called Königsberg. It was part of Prussia and Germany, the birthplace of the philosopher Hannah Arendt and Immanuel Kant. That's part of Russia now, and it's bordered by Poland and Lithuania. It's on the Baltic Sea, and it shares a maritime border with Sweden. Russia has a lot of military assets there, and today Putin flew there in sort of a taunting action. The Kremlin presidential plane flew very close to the airspace of several Baltic countries, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, and landed there in Kaliningrad. And sort of, this has rattled nerves, especially in places like Sweden and Poland and Lithuania. And so we see Russia not backing down. We see the Brits standing up to it. But we still see, whether it's in Berlin and Washington, perhaps I don't know, they've perhaps putting their heads in the sand and hoping this problem goes away.
The crash of the Russian military transport plane is still in the news. Russia says fragments of what appears to be an anti-aircraft guided missile were found at the site. I know you have pointed to those reports, Joseph, and reminded us not to believe everything we hear from Moscow. What are people there saying?
Well, I think it's clear that, and this is mainly a topic among foreigners, I would say here, because if you look at, Russia is very adept at obscuring the reality. And, so for example, last week we had the news that Ukraine had destroyed two of Russia's most important aircraft, one IL-76 and one A-50. One of them is worth $330 million. And now it seems that Ukraine has destroyed another one. So the headlines should be right now, look what little Ukraine is doing with these limited resources. They've now taken out 3 of these key Russian military planes, of which Russia only has about 24 between those two types of plane. So 3 out of 24 in a week is extraordinary. We had the reports last week that Ukrainians sort of MacGyvered different tools they had from the West in order to take down those planes, because they do have, they have the Patriot missiles from the U.S. to defend Kyiv. They have some other batteries they can move around the country, but they're not supposed to use those for offensive means. But if they can tinker with things, maybe they can make something happen. And that's really been, that's the wide sense, is that Ukrainians have been very ingenious with that. And so the headlines would be, Russia has lost 3 major airplanes. But instead, because of the because of the adeptness of Russian propaganda, we're missing that reality, and we're talking about there's like a bad Ukraine is casting a negative light somehow, that they would have shot down their own prisoners of war, and this is exactly what Russia is so good at, and the media is sort of getting caught up in a frenzy. They become unwitting agents of the Kremlin in this regard.
Interesting. Joseph Lindsley, 30 miles from Russia. Joe, I hope you have a quiet weekend. Thank you, as always.
Thank you, Bob, and until Monday.
Yeah, I hope you don't have to sleep in the bathroom much longer.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important, that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?